Tato Kōrero, our stories, sharing our learning across the kahoiako. Introducing Nisha Nayyar from Marshall Laing Primary School. Nisha is a classroom teacher who is currently completing her Grad Dip TESSOL at the University of Auckland. What made you want to do your Grad Dip TESSOL?
The increase in number of ELLS students coming to our school. And I'm actually, being a person who knows different languages and have learned different languages, I can feel the challenges that they must be facing, because I can relate to them moving to a different country and challenges and things like that. So I felt that felt the need, to understand them. And what better way of understanding than learning the text behind that, the logistics behind the fact that why these people are struggling and how can we help them. You understand the practicality of it, but then there is some theoretical knowledge behind it, the research behind it that helps you to understand. That was missing. And I think this degree helped me to get that. And now I can add the dots and see, so this is a problem, which I knew. This is how I can help. This is how they're thinking. So all the pieces are adding up now.
What is your home language, and what do you remember as being some of the biggest challenges when you were learning English?
I actually was very lucky because I grew up in an environment where I was taught English from the very beginning, because my dad was in this industry. He was a lecturer. But there's a difference in learning a language and learning in a different cultural context. Like, I learned English when I was in India. So yes, I know the language, I understood the things, but then the environment was quite different. That I realized when I came to New Zealand, that this things need to be joined, this pieces need to be put together. My dad encouraged me to learn lots of languages, and I love learning languages, but it was challenging. There were a lot of challenges that I faced, and that made me aware of the frustrations these kids would be facing, when they're learning a language, especially when this language has to be learned to survive in the environment.
What are some of your biggest takeaways from your Grad Dip TESSOL so far?
The main thing that we see with our parents is that parents don't want the children to use their native language. So these children are caught up between the school scenario and the home front. There's a different thing being said at school, there's a different thing being said at home. And it's quite, it frustrates the student. As a student, it frustrates them. Now we as teachers have to understand those things and make it work for them, so that we are at the same page with the parents and the students understand what they are doing and which is the best approach. So this degree taught me about the additional language. The students bring a lot of cultural resources with them. So this degree taught me to use those cultural resources to teach the new language, the additive approach rather than the subtractive one. The second thing it taught me about uh, knowing your students. How well should you know your students and the background? It is so important. It is so important if you want to get results, or if you want to really see your student progressing. You have to see him as the holistic picture. Him as a student, him as in his family background, his cultural background. If you understand all of that, your planning, your teaching, it becomes so much easier for both the student and the teacher.
Can you talk a little about oral language and our English language learners?
Yes, I can. So the first thing that I want to say is for parents and students and teachers, everyone, to understand that learning a second language does not take away your main language, your native language. It does not have to be at the cost of your first language. It is always good that if the children use the cultural capital that they bring with them and use it to learn the new language, it is very important that the students are encouraged that if you don't understand it, or if you cannot communicate an idea in English, for example, try speaking in your language. There's no harm. There's no shying away from the fact that who I am, my identity, because this is who I am and I should be proud of it. And the teachers have to encourage this culture in the classroom, that every child brings with him, like, no assumptions. That's the first thing we teachers. I think we don't, but sometimes, in a rush and pressure, we do make some assumptions about our students. If he's not responding to my work in the classroom, he's not understanding. Well, it's not that, because every student is different. Maybe he's taking a longer time to process because you are saying something, he's hearing it, then he's working it out, he's processing it, then he's translating it, and then he has to give you a feedback. So sometimes I have that we have finished discussion and the child comes to me and say, I think this was it, and we have started writing. But so that gives me a thing. The child was still thinking about it. So it's not that if you see on the spot he didn't answer anything, he was just not responding, and I thought that he didn't understand anything. But no, he was taking everything in. He's taking it in, he's processing it. Maybe he's taking longer time, he'll come back with it. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we make, this is another assumption we have. When a student comes to us and his conversation skills are really good, or he's fluent in his conversation, we assume that he knows the language. But that's Bex. He may be very fluent with that, but contextual knowledge may not be as much. So he may not be able to. Yes, he's a good speaker. Yeah, he speaks very well. He's talking to his friends. No, no, no. We have those things. But when I asked him a question, he never answers. Now, that doesn't mean that he's playing up or he's not understanding. That's because his Bex is very strong. Scalp is not. Its context, the vocabulary, contextual vocabulary is not that strong. Or because of his background, he doesn't have that much of contextual knowledge. So maybe I'll have to explain the same thing in the context relevant to him. If you talk to me about something I've never done, like some games like soccer and things like that, I may give you some knowledge that I've heard. It's all hearsay. I don't have any personal experience about it. So my knowledge, I can speak well, I'll speak about it. But then if you ask me some deeper questions, I would not be able to say because I don't have the contextual knowledge of that.
Recently, you finished a paper on bilingual assessment. Any advice for teachers struggling with the assessment of their bilingual learners or ELLs?
Our ELL students, they actually, when you ask them a question, they have the 4 stages that they go through. They have to hear a question or listen to a question. Then they are comprehending the question, like what is the question actually talking about. Then they are transforming it. Then they are processing it, and then they're giving it back to you. You see, so most of our ELL students get caught up in the first 2 stages. We give them 30 seconds and we say, okay, he doesn't know it. Fair enough, he doesn't know it. As a result, you see, I've seen many students who are coming from overseas. They are in a very low maths groups. Now, what happens is they create a lot of problem in that maths learning groups. They put their hands up, they're always answering, because that group is not the right group for them. We have learned so much about assessment, and we've seen assessment had to be, it has to be relatable, it has to be authentic. Now, you actually trying to assess the math skills, but do we teachers actually assess the math skills? No, because the child has not even reached the math skill. He is struggling in the first 2 stages of comprehending and transforming. The processing is not, he's not reached there, and we are out and we have made a judgment. He's not there.
Can you talk about cultural bias and assessments like gloss?
Recently, I did gloss on a student. So first thing I did was I assessed her. I administered the test the way it was told, and she came at a very low stage. Then when I worked with her, I realized that wasn't correct because she had more knowledge than the test showed me. Now, the test is only one tool. OTJ is the one that is important, which we always have to remember. So my OTJ told me, nah, this is not the right level. Something is not okay. So I went back to her. I took the test and I changed the words, not the whole test, just a few words of this test. For example, one particular question, which was asking about equal sharing. Now, she didn't understand what equal sharing meant. She had no clue what I was asking her. So when I changed it to just the equal sharing, I said, spoke in Hindi. I said, "Isko barabar banto." She was like, "Ah, she did it just, yeah, no problem. Piece of cake for her."
Talk to us more about the Lamington question.
Now, if I don't know what a Lamington is, I am stuck at Lamington and you 30 seconds is gone because I'm still thinking about what is Lamington. The skill that we were trying to assess is not being assessed. The test is not assessing the mathematical skills, but we were assessing his comprehension. We are wasting more time not translating the test than translating it. It is so helpful because you're actually getting an authentic result, which you can actually plan based on that. So please, if you're doing a maths assessment, you should assess math skills, not
Would you rather spend every weekend indoors or spend every weekend outdoors?
indoors. Surprisingly, even after the lockdown, because I like reading a lot. I like to spend time listening to music. I would prefer to stay indoors and read.
Hey Mahi Tahi! Thank you so much to Nisha Nayyar from Marshall Laing Primary School for sharing your knowledge about English language learners and how we can best support them.